Welcome back, everybody, to Best of the West. My name is Clint. No, I'm just kidding. This is Jake. I have actually shaved, so don't fret. It is me. I know I look, a lot younger, but I had to trim up a little bit. It started to get a little hot down here in the South. But again, like I said, this is Best of the West, and I can't do this show without my co-host and my buddy Stacey Blackwood. Stacey, how you doing tonight? Besides kids in the background.
Well, as always, it is wild in the Blackwood home. My 4-year-old son has gotten hold to a karaoke machine, so if you hear some "We Don't Talk About Bruno" or something like that, just don't pay no mind to it. But yeah, I'm doing good, buddy. Happy to be here. Happy to talk some NFL draft and how the SEC just completely dominated that. So I'm excited about it, buddy. Good to be here.
Man, yeah, it's been a couple weeks since when we've been able to do this. We try to do a show every week, but during the off season of football, especially down here in the South, there's not really a lot to talk about. I mean, everybody loves football, and we do love softball, baseball, and all that, but you know, an audience, you try to connect with your audience, and your audience is pretty much all football down here in the South. So we've been away for a couple of weeks, but get through the summer, and we'll be picking back up in the fall weekly with Best of the West. So just hang tight, but we'll try to get on at least twice a month or something, just to get something out there for you guys.
Yeah, and we are a little bit early tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Some things happen, so we have to move up the time frame a little bit for our show. But we do appreciate those who are joining us live, and we're happy to be back here live for Best of the West on the Y'all's Conference Network. And this has been a lot of fun to do. And like Jake said, that we have to kind of do things that the audience wants, because it's about the viewers of the show. And so we got to make sure that we're not boring them with things that they don't want to watch or listen to. So I mean, we're boring enough. So the content is very important here.
Absolutely. And if you guys watch me on Wednesday night, and we have a segment where we do off the rails. Usually we go off the rails way before, especially now since there's not a lot of football content to talk about. But we'll do some stuff like that, just to get something out there. But tonight, Stacey, like you mentioned, we're going to talk about the NFL draft, especially how the SEC dominated in the NFL draft this year in 2022. Normally it's what happens anyway. I mean,
Right.
I know Alabama's dominated. They got a ton of talented stars and players in the NFL, but the SEC in general usually puts a lot of guys in the NFL every year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nearly half of the top 10 picks of the draft were from SEC schools. I mean, you look, the number one over selection was Travon Walker from Georgia. Then you get Derek Stingley Jr. at number 3. You get Evan Neal. You get Charles Cross. So there's just you see SEC talent scattered throughout the top 10, and that carried on into the remainder of the draft. Just an amazing what the SEC has done. It's not surprising. We know how good football is down here in the South, and what it means. And you kind of talked about that in the introduction, Jake, and about how the football really is what moves the needle down here.
Right.
Everybody loves all the other sports too, but football is what moves the needle, and that's what everybody's interested in. And that's just kind of proven by the amount of talent that the SEC schools bring in, and then also what they put into the NFL.
Yep. Adam says first time tuning in. Thank you, Adam, and Roll Tide. Thanks for joining us. Come back. We do this. Like I said, we'll try to do something. At least twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, depending. But once the fall gets here and football kicks off, we'll definitely probably be here every Tuesday night for sure.
Right.
But moving on, going back to the NFL draft. There was, I would say, some controversy about the first pick. I mean, Walker is a great, talented guy, but Evan Neal, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be biased, but Evan Neal to me was a clear-cut number 1. And then that bogus rumor, it seems like, cost him a few dollars, pretty much. I mean, a few millions, because he dropped down to 7th. But Honestly, I think the Giants, got when they got him, they got the best guy in the draft up to that point. Just my personal opinion, and nothing to Walker. I mean, he's a
Yeah,
great guy,
it's
but
kind of it's one of those things, Jake. When we talked about it on our show last night about the fact that the Jaguars really just made a selection on something that may work out in a few years to help that defense improve. I don't think Trevon Walker steps right in and becomes, you know, a dude in the National Football League.
right.
Uh, but I think Evan Neal steps in, and he's one of the best tackles in football. So I just
Hmm.
feel like they should have done what was best for Trevor Lawrence, which is the future of their
Yes.
franchise, and
Yeah.
improve that offensive line. So,
Yeah.
and whether that would have been Evan Neal or Charles Cross or the kid from NC State whose name is slipping me,
Hmm.
I feel like they could have went a different route and maybe improve their team long term in a quicker way.
Absolutely. And if my memory serves correctly, I didn't watch a lot of NFL this year, but if I remember watching a few of the Jaguars games, their defense is actually pretty stout starting out. So, they I mean everybody
Well,
they
they
won
were
like two
they were the
games.
worst pass rushing defense,
Right.
in the league, so I understand it from that perspective, but Jake, I don't
Hmm.
care what anybody says, it's a quarterback driven game. I
Yes, it
mean,
is.
that's just the nature of the beast, and they should have done what was best for the quarterback, and that's protecting him.
Yes, exactly.
I
100%.
just I don't understand it, and I'm not saying like I said, it didn't have to be Evan Neal. That's who I would have picked. I think he
Hmm.
has the most upside. I think he's the guy who has the greatest potential to be the most elite tackle out of this class. But any of the tackles to me would have made more sense than Trevon Walker. And it's nothing against Trevon Walker. It's about what was best for Trevor Lawrence.
Absolutely. One thing I want to bring up, uh, man, the Texans to me had an outstanding draft. I mean, they got Derek Stingley at number 3. Then they had the 15th pick and got the offensive guard from A&M, Kenyon Green, and then in the I think it was the third round they picked up John Mechie.
Now
So
they get Mechie in the second round,
yeah,
Christian
second
Harris
round
in the third
in the
round.
third, yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah, really solid. I like their first four picks, and I'm
mhm.
not real certain about what they had after that, but
But their
really
first four,
solid picks. Yeah, really solid picks for the Texans. But they got a long way to go, Jake. I don't know.
yeah.
It's going to depend on what happens with Davis Mills at quarterback. We talked about that a little bit last night as well, and how
Hmm.
they're kind of halfway buying into him as their future quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of wait and see on that perspective. But certainly they had a really good draft on their first four picks. I will say that I think Derek Stingley's a great player, but it almost felt like a reach because
Yeah.
he hasn't really played much since 2019.
Yeah, he set out COVID year, I think, or during the
Well,
COVID
he played a
season.
little bit, but
I
I
think he
mean,
was injured, wasn't he?
yeah, he was injured for the
Hmm.
majority of that season. He was injured pretty much all of last season, so he hasn't played really since his freshman season. So, um, I don't know. I think he's a really good player, but it just seemed like a little bit of a reach in my opinion. But it's hard to pass up on a corner with his skill set.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe the game speed will it's going to have to come back to him a little bit, but because the NFL is a different animal. Uh, but Adam has a question for us. So, y'all surprised Slade went undrafted? Adam, on Tot Talk last night, we kind of touched on that, but we'll give our thoughts here. Um,
Yeah,
Honestly, I was actually shocked because my thing was, this past season, whenever it was like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, and Bryce Young and that offense needed to make a play to keep the chains moving, Slade Bolden was around the first down marker, and he pretty much caught the ball every time and got 2 or 3 extra yards out of it. And I mean, he was a possession guy, and you need that type of guy in the NFL. So
yeah.
I was actually shocked that he didn't go. I'm glad he did get picked up by the Ravens. I think he's going to fit well in that, in that system. But I was actually shocked he didn't at least go in the 6th round, 7th round.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because in the NFL, the slot receiver is kind of like an extension of the running game, and that's really what Bryce Young was. I mean, what Slade Bolden was for Bryce Young last season.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, in those third and short scenarios where it's
Hmm.
maybe a little bit too far to run it, and you want to throw it. Slade Bolden was always that guy that they went
Yeah.
to, there from his slot position. And they do that a lot in the NFL because it's much tougher to run in
Oh,
the
yeah.
National Football League. So I was surprised given the fact that Bolden was so consistent at picking up those third down conversions.
Absolutely. So I'm glad he got picked up. We also talked on our show last night, Adam. I think the question Stacey posed was, "Are you surprised that, or how was it, Stacey? You surprised that some of the names that didn't get drafted, like Slade Bolden, LeBron Ray, which ones were we surprised that wasn't drafted? Of course, Slade was both of ours, but I really think if Christopher Allen, Josh Jobe, LeBron Ray, them guys, if they wouldn't have been injured, I mean, LeBron Ray especially, he had a riddled injury plague years at Alabama. But Jobe this year and Christopher Allen, of course, if those three guys hadn't got injured, Alabama would have had three more guys that picked in the draft. And Slay should have been drafted too, just my personal opinion. So that's four guys that Alabama could have had, and that could have been rounded up about 15, I think, Stacey, of Alabama
They
guys.
would have had 11 guys
I
selected
had
then.
11. So, but still, I mean, that's a good draft. And I just hate those guys had some injuries, but because they could have been at least third or fourth rounders for sure. But anyway, your might saw stays. But moving on, are you surprised Jordan Davis went 13th, Stacey? How you feel about that?
No, I think that's about right. I think
I
if
do too.
Jamison Williams would have still been on the board, they may have went that direction, the Eagles, to kind of pair him up with Devontae Smith. But then they ended up getting A.J. Brown that trade. So,
Yeah,
I don't know what that situation was like. But Jordan Davis, what a great fit in Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is a hard-nosed, city. And I think that's what Jordan Davis is. So I think that's a great fit I mean, obviously one of the most physically imposing defenders. He is the most physically imposing defender in the draft, and I think he's going to fit in well there with the Eagles.
absolutely. Jordan Davis, he come out at combine a 4.78 and weighs like 300. And I mean, God, that's like a
Nuts.
that's like a semi running over you at full speed. I mean, golly, excuse me. But talking about the trade that they did with the Titans with AJ Brown, we loved AJ. I'm a Titans fan. We loved AJ Brown. Apparently, there was some issues about money and all that, and I hate it, but we do pick up Treylon Burks. And he's pretty much they compared him to an AJ Brown. So Burks is coming off an ACL injury, so I'm hoping he heals up and can be that next elite receiver, because outside of Derrick Henry, and when we had AJ Brown, we had him. Julio couldn't never get on the field because he was hurt. Robert Woods is becoming a really good wide receiver for the Titans, but we need another option, and Treylon Burks can be that guy, I believe.
Yeah, I mean Treylon Burks to me has a higher upside than what AJ Brown has.
Mm-hmm.
And I think AJ Brown's a great receiver, but Burks to me was one of the more underrated players in the draft this season. And so I think the Titans are going to be real happy with Treylon Burks. We saw what he done to Alabama. He absolutely dominated Alabama
Yeah, he did.
this last season. He is he's a guy that's like 6'3", 220,
Mm-hmm.
runs fast enough, great hands, great body control, wins the one-on-one matchups,
Mm-hmm.
has enough speed to beat the guys in the open field. So I think the Titans are getting a good one in Burks.
Absolutely. Adam said he's a Titans fan also, and yeah, I think they really had a really really great draft. They also got Roger McCreary in the second round. So now I cannot think of the Washington corner they picked up last year, but now they pretty much have two shutdown corners for the future. So that was a really big pickup for them as well. And then, of course, they got Malik Willis late, and another shocker that to me he fell that far, and they was able to pick him up. Now they have a guy that they can mold and still let Ryan Tannehill be the guy, because I think he's still got 2 or 3 more years on his contract. Malik Willis don't need to see the field for another 2 or 3 years, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Just let
they
him
could
learn.
really handle that situation much like
Hmm.
Kansas City did with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah.
and if they can mold Willis into becoming the starter over time, then that's what's going to be best. Because I think Willis has tremendous upside if he can figure it out. Not if he can figure it out and at the next level, he's gonna be a great football player because he has all the tools, man. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got great athleticism. He throws with anticipation, which is
Hmm.
something that you need to look for. He's pretty accurate. So I like the Willis pick, and I'm surprised he fell that far. That was maybe one of the most shocking parts of the draft.
Yeah, no, it him and Matt Corral both fallen as far as they did in my mind because they was both, in a lot of mock drafts was in the first round. But then we had the surprise of Kenny Pickett going before these two guys, and I was like, really? I mean, Kenny Pickett's a great player, but I think upside, Matt Corral and Malik Willis have a better upside and a better future in the NFL than Kenny Pickett does. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm torn on Kenny Pickett. I
Hmm.
think he's kind of one of those dudes who's maybe has the it factor
Hmm.
and maybe not just super talented. So he almost reminds me of a Baker Mayfield. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Baker's kind of one of those guys who just he's got the swag, he's got
Hmm.
the mojo, but maybe doesn't have some of the other things that you're looking for in a
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But he got picked by the Steelers, right? So
Yeah.
in the future, he's lined up in the same backfield with Najee Harris. I mean, if he's got to be on the field, just hand it to Najee. We already know what Najee can do. So and yeah, I believe Pickett was a hometown pick. They needed a
Yeah.
quarterback, and they went out and got him. And I don't blame them, but to me, it just seemed like a wasted pick. Because obviously you could have got great quarterbacks in the third and fourth round or later. I mean, we've seen it with Willis and Matt Corral. So, just might have been a reach on their end. They could have got him in the second and gone and got a player they need with their first round pick.
Yeah, as I'm looking down some of these picks from the draft and from the SEC, a guy that kind of sticks out here at pick number 56 to the Cowboys is Ole Miss edge defender Sam Williams, an Alabama
Oh
native
wow,
who I
yeah.
believe is going to be a really good pro player. I
Hmm.
don't think he'll ever be like an elite player, but I think he's going to be one of those guys who's around the league for 10 or 12 years and always has double digit sacks. So
Yeah.
I think that was a really good pickup for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I do too. That now he's paired up with Micah Parsons. I mean,
Oh, dude. I
that
mean, you can make the
yeah.
argument that in 2 years, that's the best defender in all of the NFL, Micah
Oh
Parsons.
yeah.
That dude is unbelievable.
He is. And I believe we have a guy on our team this year that's going to be just like him in a few
Right.
years. Whoever
Yeah.
gets him. So Michael Parsons all over the field, and I believe Will Anderson's going to be as well. But speaking of edge rushers slash linebackers, the shock to me was Nakobe Dean
Oh
falling
my
all the
god.
way to I think the 83rd pick.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I was blown away. How do you let this guy get? How do you let him fall this far?
I don't understand, Jake. We talked about it last night on Tide Talk
Right.
and now here on Best of the West. The fact that the best defender
Yeah.
going into this draft falls to the 83rd spot because there's injury concerns. I don't
Yeah.
remember the dude missing a game.
I don't either. And his 3 or 4 year career at
3 years at
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah.
I don't remember
I
him
don't,
missing a game. Now, I don't follow Georgia as closely as some of our friends like Corey does here at the Y'all's Conference Network, but,
right.
uh, I don't understand it. I would love to hear what Corey thinks on that. I'm sure he talked about it last night on Beast
Yeah.
of the East, but I hadn't watched that yet, but
I hadn't either.
I just I cannot for the life of me understand how Nakobe Dean fell that far. Jake, how he fell outside the top half of the first round
Yeah.
is just unbelievable to me.
It's ludicrous in my mind.
It
I'm
really
sure he'll
is.
I'm sure he'll talk about it tomorrow night as well. I'll make sure to get his comments on it. But yeah, I believe there's going to be 82 teams. Here in a few years, like man, I can't believe we didn't draft him. I mean,
It's crazy.
it was. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
he
lot
did.
of
He 83 to the Eagles. So the
that.
Eagles got both Jordan Davis and
God,
Nakobe Dean, So what a heck of a defensive draft for those guys.
And AJ Brown on the offensive side with the
Yeah.
trade. So, I
Yeah.
mean, and didn't really, they got him and didn't really give up much to the Titans, which I think that's what was the most disappointing thing for me. Titans got a couple of draft picks, but I mean, I think there's mid round, draft pick. So they got him for a steal, and then got Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean. I mean, when he fell at 83rd, and they're sitting there, he's like, I bet they was like, man, we got to take him. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, God, they had a great draft. I mean, they shored up that defense and got another weapon for Jalen Hurts. Man, the Eagles are looking like a team that they're going to be trouble in a few years.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I think pairing Devontae Smith with a guy like AJ Brown it kind of gives you a 1-2 punch by two totally different players.
Yeah.
AJ is, I mean, he can beat you all sorts of ways, but he's gonna out muscle you, and Devontae Smith's just gonna out finesse you.
Yes.
And so it's just a great combination there. So they have a great 1-2 punch there at wide receiver, and I'm excited to see how that offense looks here in the 2022 season. Jake,
Absolutely.
another Georgia defender that kind of fell a little bit, maybe 15 to 20 picks further than what I thought he would fall was Channing Tyndall, who fell to 102 to the Miami Dolphins. Really good pick for Miami there. I think that they were probably surprised that he was still available at that point in time. So really good pick up there. They've had a really good offseason. Of course, they got Tyreek Hill from the Kansas City Chiefs to pair with Jalen Waddle, and now a healthy Tua Tagovailoa. That team could make some noise, but that division, Jake, is so tough. I mean, Miami is so much improved. Buffalo's on the fringe of a Super Bowl appearance. We know New England's going to be right there. So three teams that are just really, really good. Then you have the Jets, who are still trying to rebuild for, what seems like the 20th year in a row.
It's crazy. Some of these teams, you're in it every single year and have a high draft pick. Why are you not improving? I mean, I just don't understand it. But the Jets seem like they're in that basement dwelling of having a top 5 pick every single year, and they cannot do anything with it. I don't know if it's coaching, if it's management, what it is, but they're there in the top 5. It seems like every single year.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Who did they pick? I don't even remember who they picked.
That's a good question. I don't remember who they picked either. They got. Okay, they traded. They didn't have a first round pick.
Okay, that's probably that seems right.
Yeah, there you go. So, no, that's 2020. That's not. Oh, my bad. I was in round 7. It took me to round 7. They got Ahmad Gardner. I forgot.
Oh, that's right. They got Sauce. They got Sauce.
Yeah,
that's right.
They got Sauce. That's a good pick for them. I think
that's a good pick.
That's a very good pick.
To me, I would have picked him over Derek Stingley if I would have been the Texans. So good pick for the Jets there. But the thing about draft, you got to have you have to have a good defense in the NFL. But Jake, it's all about offense in that league. I mean, you got to have a great quarterback play, good offensive line play, and playmakers on the outside, or you're not. I mean, I don't care how good your defense is, you're not going to win a lot of games, because I don't care how good your defense is. Josh Allen's going to put up points. Mac Jones is going to put up points. Tua is going to put up points in that division. So you're going to have to find a way to put some points on the board against those teams in your division that you play twice a year. So they got to get some help offensively, but not a bad pick getting Sauce Gardner, who I think was the best corner in the class.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like you said, it is a quarterback-driven league, and the old adage used to be was, defense wins championships, but maybe it still has an impact, because I mean, if but I mean, offense. I mean, everybody's building offense right now.
Well, Jake, the reason why it's changed because all the rules have changed to help to benefit the offensive side of the football. So, I mean, there's no targeting. You can't even touch the quarterback. So, I mean, the defense is at such a disadvantage now because of the rules and because of the way the game is officiated, that you have to have impact plays on offense to be able to compete for a Super Bowl.
Absolutely, and we could get off in another discussion about that because, just like analytics is killing baseball, I think some of these rules have killed football. Now, I'm all about player safety, but I mean, and I also understand these guys are a lot bigger than they were, but we started out in freaking leather helmets starting out playing this game. But I know now, there's a lot bigger men back then than there are now, but I mean, you can't even look at a quarterback without getting a flag now. So it's ridiculous. Unwritten rules, gross. Yeah.
Exactly. Unwritten rules
Mhm.
are great. Yeah, I mean, it's is yeah, like you said, we could go off on a big tangent here, but we're going to kind of keep it in focus.
Yeah, we can get off the rails another night. But yeah, one more guy I want to talk about. Since Steven is pretty much our boss on here. He's over the All Conference Network. What do you think about Matt Corral going to the Panthers? How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised he fell a little bit. There was
Yeah, me
some
too.
what they say alcohol issues. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
I mean, my gosh.
What college student doesn't have that?
Right. I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's
What?
there's plenty of grown adults who have that. I mean,
I
the
know.
dude never got a DUI. I mean,
Nope.
I don't ever remember the kid getting in trouble.
I don't either.
I
I
think,
don't either.
and we talked about it. We talked about it last night. Yeah, they are. The Panthers are
Yeah,
in disarray.
they are
Why they
terrible.
would why they would trade for Sam Darnold, I don't know. Now they got. I
Yeah.
mean, I would go ahead and just start Matt Corral if I was them.
Yeah.
I would find a way to get rid of Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Oh, the
the
Saints have been
Saints
great.
should have tried to get Corral. I don't know
Yeah.
why they didn't, but anyways, I'm not sure what the deal was with Corral dropping. He shouldn't have dropped that far. Uh, but here's one thing: when I watch film and I try to watch like the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks going into each draft class, when I look at Kenny Pickett, I mentioned I see a guy who has the swag, but maybe not the talent that you're looking for. When I see Malik Willis, I see a guy who's so raw, but it has so many natural gifts that you can't teach or coach. So
Hmm.
you want to get then when I look at Matt Corral, I see a guy who, when things are on schedule, I'm talking about in the passing game. He's great off schedule with his feet, but in the passing game, when things are get off schedule, he goes from being above average to maybe elite to average to below average. Jake, when
Hmm.
he's not on his first option and he's having to move to that second read or maybe that third read, his accuracy seems to drop a little bit. And that's just from watching tape. I mean, I didn't watch a ton, but I watched enough to notice that. That jumped off to me, Jake, that once he had to move off his first couple of reads, his accuracy really started to drop off as well. So maybe that's something that team saw, but I think
Could be.
Corral is a guy who wins. So
Hmm.
I think he's a better option than Sam Darnold by
Yeah.
no question about it. But yeah, Matt Rule, he's probably toast. He's not going to make it much longer.
Yeah, I like Matt Rule too. I just hate it for him because he's in a terrible situation.
Well,
Uh,
he hasn't helped himself.
he hasn't. No.
Why would he leave what he had going at Baylor?
I don't understand. I wouldn't. No. I would have stayed at Baylor.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's crazy. Crowd needs to get more NFL ready physically. I agree.
Yeah, he took a beating at Ole Miss. I mean, he laid it
Yeah,
on the line. That dude's a competitor.
he
You got to
is.
admit that. I don't care who you root for. That dude played hard. He gave it his all every single snap. So I think that if he can physically get there, and if he can learn to work through his progressions a little better, which is something that all young quarterbacks need to improve. But I really noticed it in his game. Then I think he can be a really good quarterback.
I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah, yeah. I like Rule. I just don't think, like you said, he's an info coach. Now at Baylor, what he had built was
yeah,
outstanding. He should just stayed there. Hell, he could have been in the playoffs this year with him. He's
never
not
know.
going to snip this playoffs with the Panthers. Not
No.
even get close. So, but Stacey, anything else you want to add? We're about to jump off here.
No, just, what a draft for the Georgia Bulldogs,
Hmm.
Jake. 15 players drafted.
It's amazing.
Unbelievable. That is a crazy number. And it makes sense of why they were able to win a championship this last season. So, big draft for those guys, and I'm sure Kirby's excited to be able to put that on some posters.
Right. I will say, no knock on them. They had an outstanding draft and had a lot of great players. But as you said last night on our show when we was ending, it took those 15 guys. They lost the first game against Alabama, and then Alabama was pretty much in it into the fourth quarter. Until late in the fourth quarter when Georgia just finally pulled it away. And Alabama, if you look, we only had 2 first-round picks. Talent-wise, it was not there this year. Our talent is this year. Bryce Young, Will Anderson's probably going to go 1 and 2.
Right. It's not that the talent wasn't there. It's just that it was really young talent.
Really young
the 2 best players on Alabama's team were true sophomores.
Right.
So, and that's not an excuse. It's just the fact.
Right.
I hate when people say, you can't make excuses. Well, telling the facts is not an excuse.
Yeah, it's facts is facts, So
the fact is that Jamison Williams and John Mechie were arguably 2 of the best receivers in college football last year, and neither one of them really played in the national championship game. If you don't think that mattered, then right, exactly, Topper. They had the depth advantage, and it was because of the Alabama's just unbelievable streak of injuries.
Yeah. Stephen Wardman's a great draft for them. Yeah, you're correct.
And not only was Alabama out both their top 2 wide receivers, but both starting cornerbacks were out as well. So
we talked about it. We're running overtime here, but Jalen Armour-Davis was our lockdown corner last year.
Yeah.
They didn't throw his way at all. They all went to Joe's side, and Joe should have been the lockdown guy, but it turned out to be Jalen Armour-Davis. And they picked on Job. But one last thing I want to figure out this year, can Kirby, losing all this talent, can he recreate it like Alabama and like Nick Saban has done year after year after year?
Well, and look, he'll probably be able to get back to the SEC championship game. And this is not a knock on Kirby. Once again, this is just stating the facts.
Mm-hmm.
The SEC East is not the SEC West.
No.
Sure, Tennessee is slowly building up to something, but Jake, Alabama has to deal with A&M. They have to deal with LSU, who has so much talent. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin is building something at Ole Miss.
Arkansas now.
Sam Pittman is building something with Arkansas. So outside of Tennessee, nobody really scares me in the East.
I like Kentucky, but they cannot beat Georgia. I just don't. I don't think they got the team right now to beat Georgia.
Right. Kirby is recruiting at an Alabama level,
right?
And so he just has such an upper hand on the rest of that division at the moment. It looks like Tennessee is slowly turning things on the recruiting show, but then you have to do it on the field as well. Jeremy Pruitt also brought in some highly touted players, but Jake, so did Butch Jones, but it's about on the field production.
Right.
And so we'll see if Josh Heupel can do that in his second season as the head coach at Tennessee. And but right now they don't have a challenger in the East.
They don't. Alabama has 4.
Yeah. Well, they have 4 teams that you have to at least concern yourself with.
Exactly. Yeah. Florida's down right now. Kentucky, they're an 8-9 win season.
Well, Kentucky lost a lot of their talent, Jake.
They did.
They had 3 or 4 draft picks in the first few rounds, which is unheard of for Kentucky. So they have Will Levis coming back, but there's a lot of question marks. They lost their offensive line coach to Alabama. They lost an offensive lineman to the NFL. They lost their best weapon on offense to the NFL. They lost their best edge rusher to the NFL. So rebuilding at Kentucky or reloading at Kentucky is different than reloading at Georgia or Alabama or Texas A&M. So is that they're not going to be quite the team that they were this past season. So there's just not a challenger on the East. So really almost by default, and like I said, this is not a knock on Kirby or Georgia, but almost by default, they're probably going to be in the SEC championship game again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to say and sound arrogant, but they're going to come in with fresh legs pretty much. Alabama's going to come through a friggin' ringer, out of the West if they make it, and I wholeheartedly believe
Georgia opens up with Oregon, right?
I think so, yeah. we got Texas, of course, in week 2, but
Yeah.
at
Texas.
Austin, at Austin. So we'll talk more about that game when it comes. But yeah, guys, thank
Hey,
y'all.
before
Go ahead.
I want to say that Topper, first of all, thank you for being in the chat. Steven,
Yes.
thank you for being in the chat. Who else was in the chat?
Adam.
Adam. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you guys for being in the chat. We really appreciate that. Steven says the problem will be Florida. I say that because we will be emotional for them. Bennett will not be the same if he's the starter. That's another thing, Jake. How is I hate to keep doubting the kid
I
because he
know.
just won a national championship, but he don't have. I mean, I don't care how good you recruit. When you lose 15 guys to the NFL, there's going to be a little bit of a drop off.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So does that affect Stetson Bennett? We'll see. He loses George Pickens. He loses Jermaine Burton to Alabama. He loses Dalvin Cook, Zamir White to the NFL. Loses a couple offensive linemen to the NFL. He still has his great tight end, whose name's slipping me right now. He's got 3
Brock
really good.
Bowers.
Brock Bowers. They got the Darnell Washington. They got Eric Gilbert. So they're good, but there's a lot to there's a lot that's going to have to be questions going to be answered, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they lost so much talent on that side of the ball. So we'll see. There's a long way to football season. We can talk about this all summer long, but it's certainly exciting because once the draft happens, you just start getting in the mood again for college football. Yeah. Milton and McIntosh are legit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we got some stuff we can talk about through the summer to get us through. One thing that we can bring up with you guys whenever a big discussion is the NIL deal killing college football. We could bring that up. We can always talk about the transfer portal, whether you like it or hate it. There's stuff we can talk about through the summer to get us get through. So again, guys, thank y'all for joining Topper Nation News. Steven, Adam, thank y'all guys for joining. Like I said, we're going to try to put the link up, early in the day of, or maybe the night before we do these. That way you can jump in the draft. And then over at Tie Talk, it's about time for us to do another live with everybody. We'll figure some time to do that, and we'll let you know when that is. SEC After Dark, we've touched on it about 100 times. We'll probably touch upon it again 100 times. Just have to come on and see what Off the Rails is about tomorrow night. But because first 5 minutes is all that's serious, and then Off the Rails happens, and it just goes from there. But
then they go into 2 hours of complete and utter nonsense.
It is. Oh my gosh! Late nights and
I have to get on there and remind them to go to bed when it's like 10:30 at night.
Yeah, I think last week you got on there, it was like, y'all need to go to bed. I was like, yeah, it's like 10:30, so it was crazy. But anyway, thank y'all for joining, guys. Stacey, thank you for coming on, and we'll yes, it is glorious. But we'll see y'all again soon. And thank you guys. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, guys. Y'all be good.